Welcome to The Arena, a show about mortgage, real estate, and the boots on the ground making it happen every day. Today I'm really excited. I have Valerie and Megan from the Valerie Bertsch team. Valerie is the #1 agent in Medford, New Jersey. That's where I live. I wanted to bring them on because they're going to give us a really unique perspective. They're seeing things from their buyers, their sellers. They're going to tell us what's going on in the market, their predictions in the market, and we're going to get right into it, guys. So, Val, I know you've been doing this for a few years.
Oh yeah, just
we
a
don't
few.
talk numbers on this show.
We don't talk numbers.
But welcome, guys. Megan, if a lot of people don't know, it's your daughter.
Yes, my daughter.
And I just thought it was so interesting to have you on here. I mean, usually, moms, daughters, they don't necessarily get along, and you happen to bring her into what's probably one of the craziest industries there is, at least that I know of. How did that happen? What happened here where she's growing up and she asked, or was it you asked or she asked, and how did that all go down?
I don't really know how it started. It was probably me saying, why don't you think about it? I knew that she would be a really great match, and then what she did previously in her job with KIP Industries, and not KIP, it's, what are we called? KIP? It's not KIP Industries though.
No, it's just KIP schools.
KIP schools. And doing a myriad of jobs there and ended up in HR, I just knew it was going to be a good match. She also, let's face it, she grew up hearing all about this. She knows more than I think she knows she knows.
It's like real estate by osmosis.
It really is. It's, because you get phone calls all the time. It's a 7-day-a-week job. From the time she was little, she'd be hearing things constantly, whether it be a weekend, evening, whatever. So, but I just knew she'd be a really good match and she'd be great for the clients, that they would love her. So that's how it sort of started.
And Megan, you've been doing this since 2017. You got to see the market pre-pandemic, and already I think it was going nuts.
Yeah.
And then you got to see the absolute insanity of the pandemic and now post. So you are a buyer specialist. Mm-hmm. And you are getting to hear all of the amazing feedback from your buyers, I guess the frustration, right?
Yeah.
So what are you seeing right now out there with your buyers?
Well, I was licensed in 2017, but really dove in full time about a year ago. So this market is all I've ever known as a full-time agent. And I will say it is crazy. But from a buyer's perspective, and those are my clients, those are the folks that I support, it's tough because pretty much every scenario is going to be a multiple bid scenario. And I know it's slowed down in other parts of the country, but it really hasn't in our experience here. And so folks, I think, and we try to work this out with our clients, is just we have to go in knowing that this is a tough market, but we're going to get there if we stick with it and if we make smart decisions. And so far it's worked out. But it can be challenging at times. It can be disheartening at times. So we just got to keep on moving forward.
Well, there seems to be a lot of fear right now and uncertainty, right? And so it's no secret the media gets a hold of things and they stoke that fear. So that's why I like, how I introduced the show of the boots on the ground. Mm-hmm. You guys are doing this every single day. You have live information. So where I feel a lot of reporters and people writing these articles for the Wall Street Journal or whoever it might be, they're maybe months behind. And so that's why right now live, everybody's getting an idea of what's going on. So Val, give me an idea. You speak to so many sellers, so many buyers, and you're hearing a lot of the objections. What are the major concerns right now, do you think, from most of the people that you've been speaking with?
Well, I'm going to start with the selling side because that's what I do a lot of. And I think the seller's fear is they're not going to find another place to live. They know the selling side is just a dream. I mean, in the sense that it's probably never going to be better. I've never seen anything like it. A seller just basically gets to write whatever they want, and they get it in multiples. But then they have to turn around and have another place to live. So that's always a challenge, and I think it's been holding people back. I hope that's coming to an end. People don't want to give up their 3% or 2% interest rate or whatever because they know if they need a mortgage going down the road, it's going to be higher. But I feel like we've waited so long with pandemic and other things. I feel that people might be missing out on the other part of that decision process. New neighborhoods, new adventures, new states, maybe, whatever. And time is
Are you
like,
saying people don't necessarily want to live in New Jersey forever? But everyone loved it here.
they do. Let's face it, it's the greatest.
My mom won't let me leave. Just to, that's why
I'm
I
not
don't leave.
going anywhere.
Right,
I love
Megan?
it.
We know.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah, we're-
But they're people have desires. They want to go other places, but they're sometimes putting it on hold because of interest rates or fears. And it seems like, time is the biggest luxury. Like, don't waste that time. So I hope that I can instill in them a little confidence that we're going to get through it. We're going to find you other options on the other end. And don't pass up on dreams or put them on hold too long. Like, live your life. We'll figure this out.
I think what a great point, and it really gets to the core of what's happening right now. Because on one hand you have logic, and then
Yes.
the other hand you have kind of like reality. And the logic, and a lot of people are saying, I have a 2.75 interest
Yeah.
rate, my payment is here, my budget is here,
Right.
I have uncertainty, so we're just going to see what happens. And they kind of are like frozen with fear or
Exactly.
analysis paralysis or whatever you want to say, and they just don't do anything. And then all of a sudden a year goes by, 2, 3 years.
Yeah.
And to your point, what if they don't like the neighborhood? What if, that's why we moved the last
Yeah.
time. We didn't love our neighborhood. And we said, do we want our kids kind of growing up here? It was a busy street.
Correct.
We didn't love the school district it was in. There were real things like lifestyle things that really would make a difference to us and
On your daily life.
our daily life.
Yeah.
And I didn't, at the time, I mean, yes, the rates were lower and that's great. But the rate, are you going to let an interest rate dictate your life?
Correct.
And that's kind of where reality of that needs to trump some of that logic. Now, of course, you don't want to put yourself in a bad situation, but
Financially, obviously.
but there are other factors.
There are other factors. There are other factors for sure. Being close to family members, all sorts of things, reasons why people want to be someplace other than where they are. So I think we all were waiting for this to happen and move past us quickly, the current conditions, and we've seen that it really hasn't. This year, I think, shocked all of us when it began. We thought, oh, it's past. We're going to go into more of a balanced market. And I think very clearly, beginning of February, we saw it's just like last year, maybe worse as far as the unbalanced side, the seller having such dominance and the buyers having to struggle. So I don't think it's any better than last year. I'd say it's a little bit more challenging for buyers. So maybe we shouldn't have waited. So let's jump in. Let's get you where you want to be.
Yeah, and going to, again, the fear and why people aren't starting the process, the other part of it is supply and demand. The supply isn't catching up,
It's not,
and the prices are going to continue to rise. And
I think.
even if it slows down a little bit, they're still rising. So if you wait that year, that 2 years, the 3 years, and then you go back to the neighborhood that used to be, a certain price point, and now it's 50,000 more, and then you're going, oh my God! And then eventually you do pull the trigger, and you just kick yourself again for wasting the time, which you brought up is probably your biggest factor when.
Yeah, I think if you know where you want to be, to say, hey, I'm going to put that on hold for 2 years, I would re-examine that. I would really look at that, really look at those numbers, and see, does that really make sense? Let's just do where you want to be, where you want to be.
So
Life is short.
So let's talk about this with the sellers
Yes.
and buyers. So again, seller, you're in the driver's seat.
Absolutely,
Buyer, not so much.
not at all.
So it's like you get the
Not at all.
You look, it evens out.
Yeah.
It's like I had this great experience
Yep.
selling, and unless you want to just sell, buy an
rent.
RV and just
Yeah.
be a nomad around the
Exactly.
country forever. Which hey,
Sounds nice.
maybe one day,
Yeah.
when the kids are out. But I think that a lot of sellers, at least that I've spoken to, they feel as though when they go in their contract, that's it. They're homeless. There's no protection for them. It's like, oh my
Off
God.
a cliff.
They know when I list my house, most likely it's going to sell within days,
Yep.
if not a couple weeks.
Yep.
And then it's, what am I going to do? So talk to me a little bit about the protections and the things that you do to kind of calm those fears
Absolutely.
and make sure that you give them time to go to that next phase, which is buying.
Yeah, so I mean, it's something that we've always had available to us, but really never needed to use. But making a sale contingent upon the seller finding suitable housing. Again, you really can ask anything of your buyers, and buyers will accommodate if they want the house. So if you have a fear as a seller, hey, I don't know where I'm going, and I don't want to be homeless. I don't want to move twice. It's a great tool. We make that sale. We're upfront to be fair to everybody when we list it, that if we find a buyer, when we choose our buyer out of the multiple that probably will come forward, part of that choice is going to be looking for a buyer that's going to be super flexible and says, yes, I can handle a contingent. I'll give you some time, 2 weeks, a month, whatever it is that you need to go out and see if we can find you a place. And that's happening a lot. And I think that gives a lot of sellers a little bit more comfort.
Yeah, and then that way they know there's things that even could be written in the contract.
Absolutely. And if you don't find it, you come back and say, I can't remove that contingency to the buyer. If you'd like to wait, we can extend that. But if not, I understand. And sellers at this point can still feel confident that if they go back at the market again in the near future, they're probably going to find a buyer, not a problem.
So it actually seems like sellers, buyers, you are so much in the driver's seat. You have so
Absolutely.
much in the
You
advantage.
really do.
It actually more than helps on the buy side. And right now, I think, to me, it seems people are sitting on more equity than they even realize.
This is very true, and that's a whole nother topic.
So what are you finding?
Yeah.
You're walking into a house. Are people just surprised by how much their house could sell for?
I think they have somewhat of an idea. When it actually happens and the bids come in, when they're actually in the market, I do think they're still like, oh my goodness, I didn't expect this, because it's silly, it's crazy what they're getting offered. You can talk specifically about the appraisal gap. We're just not accepting offers where the buyers aren't offering to cover the appraisal gap, which everyone can't do. Not everyone has that cash available.
So what she's talking about is if the house is selling for $500,000, and that's the sales price and on the contract, but the comparable properties, which is how appraisals are done, comes in at $450,000.
Right.
Well, there's a $50,000 gap. What do you do with that? Now, in a market where it's not as heavily favoring the seller, that'd be a situation where negotiations would happen.
Correct.
Seller would come down, buyer maybe goes up a little bit, and that still happens.
Occasionally.
But more likely than not, the buyer's going to have to make up that in
Yeah.
cash.
Yeah.
Dollar for dollar.
Dollar for dollar.
And so what you're saying too is again, the sellers are at that advantage where now they don't have to bend as much.
They don't. They really don't. And it's hard for the buyers. You feel bad. I mean, you do. But I think it's letting that buyer know. They've read about it. It's been in the media. But it's really letting them understand about that and making sure when we pre-qualify and getting them pre-qualified, they understand about that gap. They know what their maximum limit is that they can do. So they know they can face it with reality. And I hate to say it, but I do often say to the buyers, when they say, is this a good deal? I go, for the buyers right now, I don't think there is a good deal out there. I mean, there just
The
is
good
no
deal
good
is
deal.
they're getting.
Yeah, exactly. There's not
again,
a good
the lifestyle
exactly.
part.
So
The logic
get
part.
over that. Trying to find I've got a great deal. It's not happening.
In the long run, it will be, right?
If it's the house you love and you
Right.
stay and you're happy and rates come down and you get to refi with no charge, that's all being offered to buyers now. So there are a few things out there that we're doing or people are doing to try and help the buyers, but to try not to get caught up in, is this a fabulous buy? Because it's just not on the buyer side. You're paying top dollar. It's just what it is.
Well, and also, I know you and I invest, and I have rental properties, and I think the problem ends up being, again, let's talk to this logical brain that people have.
That's true.
They go, well, I'm overpaying by $30,000, $50,000.
Exactly.
That's bad financial move. I'm not going to do it. But again, let's talk about your life. This is how much is this improving that life and your family and putting you in that position where now you're good. Now, talking about investment, houses appreciate on average around here about 5% on average, and that's over 50 years. Lately, yes, during the pandemic, we saw 20+% appreciation. Last year, I think it was close to 10% appreciation. And this year, probably between 5 and 10, I would imagine. So let's just even say it's 5%, and you buy a $400,000 house. Next year, by that logic, it'll be worth $420,000. It'll be worth whatever. If you're staying in the home long term, that shouldn't matter.
No, it shouldn't. I think what people are afraid of, everyone keeps coming back to 2008, which you were in the market then, obviously. We saw what happened. It was a good time. But everyone's worried about this, the big correction. Is it coming? When's it going to come? And again, media we have that information coming at us. They're now talking about soft landings and things of that nature. And I think that is really what people are more worried about, not that they're going to be flat, but is there going to be this huge correction? I'm going to buy a house and pay maybe $50,000 over, and then I get transferred 2 years from now, but you can't predict all that. And all of a sudden the market has dropped out. It's just so hard to guess it. The experts can't guess it. The analysts can't guess it. I think you really have to say what's best for me, what's best for my loved ones. Like, home is home. It's sometimes it's not quantifiable. If you can afford to do it, to live where you want to live, I just say, just go for it.
I think that's been the theme so far is just take action.
Yeah.
Do your research.
Yeah.
Get started. I've always said, get pre-approved. There's no excuse
Absolutely.
to not know your There's so many great options out there. First-time home buyer programs. A lot of people don't realize that to be a first-time home buyer doesn't mean I've never bought a house before.
Right.
It just means you haven't bought a house in 3 years, and all of a sudden, first-time home buyer again. Also, a lot of people don't realize if your spouse is a first-time home buyer, that qualifies you for first-time home buyer programs.
Even though you've owned a house for 40 years, whatever. I mean,
Yep.
whatever the case might be, it is.
Yeah, and again, people don't know.
And they
what
wouldn't
they
know
don't
unless
know.
they sit down.
Well,
and talk
Google
to someone.
University is where people
That's
like to
true.
turn to.
And sometimes it's okay, but it's not the real thing. And that is always the first step. I mean, there's just no point in even saying, let's go spend 2 days getting your heart broken for homes that you may or may not. Let's just find out. Let's get a strategy, because you need strategy. You have to have strategy now.
So walk me through, Megan, the process when you have a new buyer and they might need to sell first, and that's where I know, Val, you'll have a consultation with them. But I'm interested to see, and I know a lot of people don't even know that first step. They know they eventually want to buy, maybe a year out, 2 years. They just don't even know what to do. They're trying to do some research on Google University, but they need to talk to an expert. Just walk me through how someone would get started with you.
Well, step number one is definitely to connect with a great mortgage company and get clear on your numbers. That's step number one. And ask all of those questions, and don't be scared to, I think sometimes people are nervous that there's a lot of jargon and how do they don't ask silly questions or, all this. That's my big push for everyone. There are no silly questions. Find a great team and make sure you're getting informed. So that is step number one, first and foremost. And then step number two, we want to get clear on kind of what they're looking for. I always like to cast kind of a broad net. Sometimes people have it in their mind, like I want this one town, or I want this one thing, or I need a 3-car garage, or whatever it is, right? And I think there is an exploratory phase where we go, okay, well, you're getting clear on your numbers. Let's just start looking at what's out there. If you're interested in a thing, I'll pull comps, and you can see what those type of things have gone for over the last 6 months, let's say. Get as informed as you can on the market, so that when you have those numbers and when you find the thing that ticks all of your boxes, we are ready to move. We're ready to move fast, decisively, and we're doing it in an informed and hopefully logical way. Buying a home, selling a home is a pretty sentimental thing. It's a very emotional journey for folks, and that's just, it is what it is, right? And that's good, but as much as possible to root everything in numbers and logic and what data is out there, that's going to give them the best shot at getting the place that they want to get.
I think one of the worst moments in my career have been tied to people that have lost that perfect home because they weren't prepared, because they couldn't pull the trigger
Because they weren't ready. They weren't prepped.
and not even logic-wise, but emotionally. They hadn't gone through enough of the process to even know it was the house. It was a good deal.
Right.
And then it's one of those things. They see a house pop up. Now, years past, they had weeks, maybe months to look at it, bring their
the
family
parents.
back, go there multiple
Yep.
times, hem and haw over it, and then eventually put that offer in. And now it's a situation with literally hours. I mean, we had to invest in technology that lets you and the buyer have control over issuing pre-approval letters any time of the day. It could be midnight, because sometimes that's when you need to put an offer
It's
in.
essential, yeah.
And so just being ultra prepared,
Yeah.
it seems to be the key.
Yeah, and then I think reflective as you're going through the process. If you've made 2-3 bids on different properties and lost them, let's not just keep on, hitting the same wall over and over. Let's take a step back. what are we doing here? It's not working. Connect back with our larger team. Like, what other tools do we have in our toolkit? And then be strategic moving forward. Because, no one wants to do this. When you're ready to buy, you don't want to wait for a year and a half and go through this 75 times. You want to be really smart about it. So kind of being thoughtful as you're going through the process.
And then they always compare every other house to a house they
One.
lost. And then they never find. So yeah, I think don't be like them. Don't be like the people that we just feel so sorry for. Make sure you're prepared. And then the other part is when you're getting pre-approved, and obviously that's something I know a lot about, but the objections usually are, one, I don't want to run my credit, and it's things like that. And a lot of people don't realize you don't even run a hard credit report, or at least we don't. So we're running a soft pull, which means it doesn't impact your scores at all. It's the same thing Credit Karma does. Mm-hmm. And it gives at least an idea of where do you stand. Do you need to work on yourself a little bit? How much money do you need? A lot of people think I need to save up all this huge amount. And maybe that is true, but do you really know? Because if you qualify for one of these first-time homebuyer programs, maybe now you don't need as much and you have extra money to do appraisal gaps and be more of a competitive buyer. And maybe you're going to be ready in a year and you think it's 3 years. So to your point, getting started, knowing your numbers, having a game plan, that seems to be your key and secret with your buyers.
Yeah, and just getting that team that you trust. I mean, we're their team. That's what we're here to do. You and me, we're going to do anything we need to do to get them where they need to go. And I think sometimes people, feel like they're in it alone, or they have to be in it alone. They shouldn't be.
Val, walk me through the listing process here. So again, you have a lot of sellers. They know that my neighbor's house sold for this. What could I get? And they're so excited at the prospect of, now all this money, and that potentially could come to them, and what to do with it. Am I downsizing and then spending the rest on the RV? Am I downsizing?
Taking off.
Am I downsizing and
Not
buying?
going to own a home. I'm just going to
Or
live
getting
in a
the
car.
heck out of here and going to Florida.
Yep.
What is the process for you when you start with a seller?
I have to say that is probably one thing that really hasn't changed so much in this market. It's pretty consistent. I believe the same things as far as our job is to maximize what you're getting out of that home. And that, I believe, requires prep. And that's, it has to come from the seller as far as what are their goals. And that's one thing we talk about right off the bat. I mean, we can put a house in this market on without really any prep, and it's going to sell. But is your goal to really maximize what you're getting out of it? Because we know what those things are that we have to do to get there.
Which probably isn't that big of a deal.
It really
Little paint,
isn't.
Cosmetic
It
stuff.
really isn't. And it's my personal thing that I feel like, let me help you. I really feel like we can make so much more money. But there has to be a trust level there, of course. We try and show them the difference of homes that have sold, that have been prepped properly, whether it be staged, paint colors, whatever. And we're seeing about a 30% increase if you take the time to do it right. We have a list of incredible professionals. We have this amazing program called Concierge with Compass that fronts the money for 0%.
Wow.
To do painting, to do whatever, because as a company we believe in that. Like, that's our job, is to get you the best price.
Because the return on that is...
it does require a little bit more work. It involves letting us in your house and guiding you and on all these choices. And appreciate that not everyone's in for that. I mean, they just want to list it. They don't want to do that, and they're happy with whatever they get. That's fine too. But we do have these added value things that I personally, as a seller, have taken advantage of. I've used Concierge program with my investment property to sell.
Sure.
And the results were just astronomical, more than I was surprised.
Well, you watch the HGTV shows.
Actually, I don't watch HGTV.
I do.
I don't.
I yell at people that do it. I'm like, I binge them.
I don't. I can't deal with it.
But that's a big theme. They have a lot of shows about that. Of just look, if you let a professional in,
it's unbelievable.
and they design, they kind of move things around. They declutter. They do a little paint. They do things. It's amazing how much better a house will show. Basically,
how much better it will photograph.
Yes.
It's that feeling. People are still buying emotionally. People fall in love and they envision themselves. And we have professionals who know how to create that space. And if you can do it, I highly recommend it. And that's my thing. I love to do it because I feel so good to see that we've absolutely maxed out. We've done our job. We've gotten you the most money you can.
You know, I read an article the other day, and of course the theme of all the news now is AI.
Yes.
And so I read an article about what are the jobs AI will replace, and specifically with real estate. And you know, as I'm listening to you speak, and we know each other well, this is something that I know there's no robot, there's no AI that
Absolutely
will
not.
ever be able to replace experience. And I think when sellers and buyers are looking for a team, and Megan, you brought that up before, they're looking for a team. What's really important about that team? And a lot of people could say, well, you know, here's my commission, and I'll give you a break here, or you know, I've been doing this long enough where I know if I put it on the market, it should sell, and that's what's important. But there's so many little things that issues, let's just face it, that come up. You've been doing this again a few years, and so at this point of your career, what's your feeling on that, and your confidence level going into these situations and transactions?
So are we talking about in relationship to an AI?
You know, you versus the robot. Val.
I think it would be, I mean, it's really fun. I mean, obviously we've all been dabbling in it and to help with writing really awesome descriptions and things of that nature. But as far as boots on the ground, as you use that, it's really hard to replace that. I mean, I don't even know how many homes I've been in my life. I mean, that's what I do. And thank goodness I happen to love it. I mean, I love homes. I'm obsessed. I have househead, I call it.
I love that.
I go in and I just want to, and I'm not a decorator. I don't want to say I'm a decorator, but I know how to present a house and I know how to do it economically. And that's what gets things sold. So I find it very hard to think that an AI could take a scan of the room and say, do this, do that, do that. Because a lot of our homes, particularly in the area we're in, are super unique. You know, that's what's so fun about our area and what's so fun about my job, frankly, is I never know what's going to be inside that door when I walk in. We have log cabins, we have lakefronts, we have beautifully newer construction homes on lots of land and the landscaping and all of that good stuff. We're not a cookie cutter area, so I can't imagine that an AI could really address that.
Well, in the battle of the robots, you will be our leader.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm ready.
All right, so last part, guys, get out your crystal balls. Again, my boots on the ground, you guys are seeing it live.
Yeah.
What are you seeing as we finish this year, so short term, and then kind of where are you seeing we are trending long term, maybe over the next 3 to 5 years?
She's looking
I'll
at
let
me.
you take that one.
I feel really positive. And again, is it all the years I've been doing this? I don't know. There's just a feeling, like you just know kind of in what direction things are going. And I feel there's going to be a little bit more balance coming back in. And when I say balance, I mean between sellers and buyers. I still think it's going to remain a seller's market. We know that from our numbers and lack of inventory. But I think it's more sellers are going to move to get on with their lives. I think there is this quality of life that you just can't put on hold. And we already had the pandemic. Then we had this crazy market, and like enough already. People are they want to live their lives. So, and that sometimes means moving around, being close to grandchildren, being close to a brother or sister, like whatever it is. You just want to go explore the world. It's a great world, a great country. So I just don't see that people are going to be waiting for the next drama to happen. I think we've learned, we've developed skills. We're all moving on. Like,
Kind of accepting the reality and just moving.
Or the reality is that we don't know.
Right.
We don't know because we've seen some crazy things in the last 3-5 years.
I love that.
So, you know, who's to say? So let's just try and be as intelligent as we can about it, not put ourselves in a financial disadvantage going forward, but do what we want to do and get on with it. And I think you're going to see increased activity on the seller side. I really do.
Love it. Well, we need that. Megan, what do you say? What are your predictions? And I'm going to hold you to it.
I mean, this is such a cop-out. I agree.
She has to.
Mom is the best.
I have to.
Mom
She's sitting right here. No, I agree. I mean, I also feel it, but I feel it amongst like my peers. I mean, people who have been waiting. Maybe they live in Philly and they love Philly, but they've been ready to come. But they've been like, well, I'm not gonna come until things calm down. they're like, enough, I want to get my kids into a school district or whatever it is that they are looking for. So I agree. I feel that people are ready to move, and I think that will hopefully bring some balance back. And you know what? It's hard right now, but it's not impossible. And so
That's right. It isn't impossible.
Yep. So we'll keep on moving.
I love that. Guys, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having us. This was awesome.
Yes, it was a great segment.
Great to talk about these things because they're going in our head constantly. And so it's nice to be able to really talk about them.
That's right. And now to get in touch with Megan and Val, what's the website? How can people get in touch with you?
You don't know?
We're going to put the website right here.
Val B sells homes.
Aren't we in the process of changing it to the chime? I think Deanna is.
Yeah. Well, Billy will put it all on there.
I'm sorry.
All the contact
Don't
information.
have a website.
It'll be all over in the
Don't
description.
have one.